Lena had never imagined that her life would change in a single day. She had spent years working as a human ambassador on distant planets, solving disputes and learning alien cultures, but nothing had prepared her for the summons to the palace of the Alpha King, a ruler feared across the galaxy, now lying unconscious in a deep coma after a brutal battle to protect his planet. The Royal Council's message was clear. She was to marry the Alpha King, not as a choice, but as a duty. Her heart pounded as she read the formal decree. Marry a comatose alien, she whispered to herself. The idea felt unreal, yet the council stressed that the marriage was necessary to maintain peace. Rival factions within the planet's ruling elite were restless, and any delay could trigger a war that might destroy both human colonies and alien alliances. When she arrived at the palace, Lena felt both awe and fear. The structure was massive, built with materials that shimmered like liquid metal, and hovering lights floated silently through the halls. The air was warm, perfumed with strange alien flowers. Courtiers in exotic robes watched her closely, their eyes curious, skeptical, and sometimes hostile. Lena realized quickly that her every move was being judged. She was led to the king's chamber. The Alpha King lay on a raised platform, surrounded by soft, glowing fields of energy that kept his body stable. His features were sharp, regal, and terrifying. Even in a coma, he seemed powerful, commanding attention without saying a word. Lena felt a shiver run down her spine. She had heard tales of the Alpha King's strength, his unmatched skill in battle, and his unwavering leadership. To marry him while he could not even speak. It was daunting. The council left her alone with him. Lena approached cautiously, her steps echoing on the metallic floor. She studied the king's face, looking for any sign of life beyond the monitors and sensors. His chest rose and fell steadily, and his hands rested calmly at his sides. "I will not fail you," she said softly, unsure if he could hear her. Her words sounded fragile in the massive room, but they carried her determination. Over the next days, Lena settled into the palace. She studied the king's habits, noting the patterns of his sleep cycles and subtle changes in his body. She read reports of his past battles, his diplomacy, and his victories. The more she learned, the more she understood the man he was beneath the fearsome reputation. He was strategic, intelligent, and capable of great compassion for those he trusted. Lena realized that the Alpha King was not merely a ruler to be feared. He was a person with dreams, values, and perhaps loneliness. The courtiers watched her with skepticism. Many whispered behind her back, some outright mocking the idea of a human marrying the Alpha King. "She knows nothing of alien politics," one advisor said. "She will fail," another whispered. Lena ignored them. She knew that if she showed fear or weakness, it would give the rivals an advantage. Her role was not just to survive, it was to protect the king and the fragile peace he represented. Despite his unconscious state, Lena began speaking to him daily. She read books aloud, telling him stories from human history, poetry, and even tales of bravery in distant battles. Sometimes she laughed at jokes no one else would understand. She told him about her home, her family, and her small victories as an ambassador. Every day she sat by his side, speaking as if he could hear her, and somehow she felt he did. A subtle warmth seemed to grow in the room, a quiet connection that defied reason. One evening, while adjusting the energy fields around his platform, Lena noticed something unusual. His hand twitched slightly. She froze, unsure if it was a reflex or a sign of consciousness. Over the next days, tiny movements became more frequent. His fingers shifted, his eyes flickered under the closed lids. Lena's heart raced. Could it be that he was responding to her presence? She did not know, but she continued speaking to him, her voice steady, filled with hope and courage. Meanwhile, the threats outside the palace grew more urgent. Rival factions had begun to mobilize, sensing weakness in the king's coma. Lena was not trained as a warrior, but she was clever and quick-thinking. She studied the palace's security systems, learned the schedules of the guards, and devised subtle traps to catch intruders before they could reach the king. The courtiers began to notice her skill. Whispers of admiration replaced some of the earlier skepticism. Even in a palace of aliens, a human mind proved valuable. One night, as Lena monitored the palace, she detected unusual energy fluctuations near the perimeter. A faction was attempting a covert attack. Lena acted swiftly. She triggered the palace's defense drones, closed hidden gates, and directed the guards to intercept the intruders. Chaos erupted in the outer halls, but Lena remained calm, issuing clear instructions and making split-second decisions. Her bravery and intelligence prevented a disaster. By the time the dust settled, the rival faction had been driven back and the palace remained secure. After the attack, Lena returned to the king's chamber, exhausted but resolute. She sat beside him, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "I will not let them hurt you," she whispered. "I will keep you safe no matter what it takes." The quiet hum of the palace surrounded her, and for a moment she imagined that he could hear her words, that he understood her promise. Days turned into weeks. Lena's connection with the Alpha King grew stronger, even without words. She learned to anticipate his subtle movements, adjusting his position gently, feeding him nutrients and keeping him comfortable. She felt a strange sense of companionship, as if they were speaking in a language beyond speech. The courtiers, once skeptical, now watched with respect. Lena was not merely a human bride. They saw her as a protector, a leader in her own right. One morning, Lena noticed a new change. The king's eyelids fluttered, and a faint, almost imperceptible movement of his lips suggested he was dreaming. Lena leaned closer. "It's all right," she said softly. "I am here. You are safe." Her words were a comfort, and she felt a flicker of something in response, perhaps recognition, perhaps trust. The idea that a human could influence the Alpha King's recovery was unprecedented, and yet, Lena had done it with patience, courage, and care. As Part 1 draws to a close, tension rises within the palace. Rival factions are still plotting, watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. Lena's presence alone has altered the balance of power. She stands as both a shield and a symbol, a human who can face dangers, protect the Alpha King, and navigate the complex world of alien politics. One quiet night, as she sits beside the unconscious king, Lena feels a shift in the room. The energy fields around him flicker, and his hand moves slightly again. She whispers, "Soon you will wake and we will face everything together." In that moment, Lena realizes that the bond she has built, through courage, intelligence, and compassion, has changed not only the Alpha King but also the fate of an entire planet. The story ends on a note of suspense and hope. The Alpha King is still in a coma, but the first signs of awakening are there. Lena has proven herself, both to the palace and to herself. She has embraced her role, not out of fear or duty alone, but because she understands that sometimes courage and humanity are the greatest powers of all. The next chapter will bring challenges, revelations, and the moment that will change everything: the Alpha King's awakening. The palace was quiet, the corridors glowing softly with the gentle hum of energy fields. Lena had grown used to the rhythm of the king's chamber, the rise and fall of his chest, the faint twitch of his fingers, the subtle warmth that seemed to radiate from his presence even while he slept. But tonight felt different. She sat beside the Alpha King, brushing a lock of dark hair from his forehead. His eyelids fluttered more noticeably than before, and Lena's heart leapt. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm here. You're safe." For the first time, she felt as though her words were reaching him. A faint shift of his hand suggested recognition, a spark of consciousness stirring within him. Days passed, and the signs of awakening grew stronger. The king's eyes occasionally flickered beneath his closed lids, and small, deliberate movements of his hands and head hinted at growing awareness. Lena maintained her routine, reading aloud from human histories, recounting stories of bravery and speaking of peace and hope. The palace, once filled with whispers of doubt, now watched her with cautious admiration. She had become more than a protector. She was a symbol that humanity could stand alongside the galaxy's greatest powers. One evening, a subtle change took Lena by surprise. As she adjusted the energy field surrounding him, the Alpha King's fingers wrapped around hers, though weakly. Lena froze, staring in disbelief. Could he truly feel her? Could he recognize her touch? Her heart raced with both excitement and apprehension. She gently squeezed his hand in return. "It's me," she whispered. "Lena, you're safe now." The king's grip tightened slightly, as if answering her silently. News of the king's signs of awakening spread through the palace. Courtiers whispered in awe, wondering if the human woman had somehow influenced the Alpha King's recovery. Some were skeptical, some were fearful, and some were curious. but Lena paid little attention. Her focus remained on him. She knew that when he awoke, everything would change, and she wanted to be ready for the moment. The day finally arrived. The Alpha King stirred more visibly than ever before. His eyes opened slowly, revealing irises that glowed faintly with the strength and wisdom of a seasoned ruler. Lena's breath caught. He looked at her with a mixture of confusion and recognition, the first words of consciousness forming in his mind. He was not just awake, he was aware of her presence, Lena. His voice was deep, commanding, yet fragile from weeks of silence. Lena knelt beside him, careful not to overwhelm him. "Yes," she said softly. "It's me. You're safe. The palace is secure." The Alpha King's eyes scanned the room, taking in the softly glowing walls, the hovering energy lights, and the human who had cared for him during his most vulnerable hours. He struggled to remember the days of his coma, but a sense of gratitude, respect, and something deeper filled his gaze. "You stayed?" he asked, his voice rough but filled with emotion. "I stayed," Lena said firmly. "I promised to keep you safe, and I have." Her words carried strength and determination. She had risked her life countless times in the past weeks, outsmarting rival factions and protecting the palace. Now her bravery had earned the king's recognition. The Alpha King attempted to sit up, but his body was weak. Lena quickly supported him, helping him regain his balance. As he stood, she realized just how imposing he truly was. Even weakened, he exuded power and presence. Yet there was also vulnerability. A man who had been at the mercy of his own body and a human's courage. Rival factions sensed the Alpha King's awakening and moved swiftly, hoping to strike before he regained full strength. Alarms sounded throughout the palace. Lena's mind raced. She would not let anyone harm him. Not now, not ever. She directed the palace defenses with precision, coordinating guards and drones to intercept the attackers. The Alpha King, though still regaining his strength, joined her. He issued commands with authority, and together they repelled the faction's forces. The synergy between human and Alpha King astonished the courtiers. No one had expected a human to be so capable in leadership and strategy, nor an alien ruler to respect and rely on one. After the palace was secure, Lena helped the Alpha King back to his chamber. They sat in silence for a moment, both catching their breath. Lena looked into his glowing eyes and saw a mixture of awe, respect, and something unspoken. The bond they had formed in silence through care, courage, and compassion had grown stronger than either had imagined. The turning point came when Lena, feeling a surge of emotion, placed her hand gently on the king's cheek. He leaned into her touch instinctively, as if he had always known it was coming. Lena looked into his eyes, her voice trembling slightly but filled with certainty. "You are awake now, and we will face everything together." The Alpha King hesitated for a moment, struggling to find words. Then, in a gesture that surprised them both, he leaned closer. Lena met him halfway. Their lips touched in a simple yet powerful kiss, a connection born not of duty but of trust, recognition, and the bond that had grown during his coma. The room seemed to hum with energy, as if the palace itself acknowledged the moment. When they pulled back, the Alpha King spoke, his voice steady but full of emotion. "You have changed everything," he said. "Not just for me, but for all of us. Your courage, your heart, it has proven that humanity is more than capable." Lena smiled, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. "We did this together," she said softly. "Humans and aliens, together." The palace courtiers, who had been watching in awe, realized the significance of the moment. The Alpha King, once feared and unapproachable, now stood with a human as an equal. It was a turning point for the planet, a symbol that strength came not only from power and fear, but from courage, compassion, and unity. In the following days, the Alpha King and Lena worked together to strengthen the palace's defenses and build alliances. Rival factions who had once sought to seize power were either convinced to ally with them or neutralized through careful strategy. Lena's intelligence and understanding of both human and alien politics proved invaluable. She was not merely a bride, she was a partner in leadership, strategy, and vision. The Alpha King grew stronger each day, but he never forgot the human who had cared for him when he was weakest. Their bond deepened, built on trust, respect, and shared experience. He admired her bravery, her intelligence, and her unwavering commitment to doing what was right, even in the face of danger. Lena, in turn, saw the man beneath the title, strong, wise, and capable of great kindness and love. One evening, as they stood together on a balcony overlooking the city, the Alpha King spoke. "You have shown me a new way to lead," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Not through fear, but through courage and trust. I will follow your counsel and stand beside you always." Lena nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. "And I will stand beside you," she said. "Not as someone forced by duty, but as someone who believes in what we can build together." The story ends with a sense of hope and unity. The Alpha King, once alone in his power, now shares his strength with a human partner who has proven that courage, intelligence, and compassion can change the fate of worlds. Together they face the future, not as ruler and subject but as equals, partners, and allies. The palace, once filled with fear and intrigue, now stands as a symbol of cooperation and mutual respect. Lena and the Alpha King have shown that humanity, with its courage and heart, can stand alongside the greatest powers of the galaxy, and in their bond, forged in moments of silence, danger, and trust, they have discovered a love that transcends words, a partnership that will shape the fate of their planet and beyond.